Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Merrel Bowles, a resident here at Deaton Creek. And with me today, we have Joe Amos, who is a resident of Deaton Creek and who is a civil engineer, graduated from Georgia Tech, so we're sitting across from a Georgia girl here. His main job was construction management, and he is part of the CIC, which is the Capital Improvements Committee, pertaining, especially working with the walls that we're going to be voting on August 15th. So, Joe, I've got questions I want to ask you, and these questions are really based from me being out in the community with the clubs and activities that I'm involved with and hearing questions that I would prefer be answered by somebody of your caliber. And first and foremost is, the question is, why should I vote for a retaining wall if I don't have one in my backyard?
Well, that's a fairly complicated question, actually, but the vote is to place the inspection and maintenance of the retaining walls under the umbrella of the HOA. They're currently not, and that is a function of the way Pulte structured the CCRs. Over the long haul, there has been inspection, I guess you would call it, and mainly reaction to any issues that presented themselves by property and grounds, but there has not yet been a formal inspection and maintenance program for the walls, which is actually what they need. And the walls are not individual to each homeowner. They're part of the term I use is infrastructure, and most people recognize that. It's just like the streets and sidewalks and the utilities and the storm drainage. They were put in place to allow the development of the property, to allow the homes to be built. I mentioned the storm drainage. Most people may not be aware that there actually is in place a inspection and maintenance program for the storm drainage system. All the storm drop inlets and curb inlets and the storm pipe and the retention ponds and all that, excuse me, are under a formal inspection and maintenance program. And it's not just residents doing that. As I understand it, the board actually has someone under contract, professional, that inspects them on a regular basis. Unfortunately, that's not been done with the retaining walls. And it, unlike most, if not all, the similar communities in our area, the problem that presents is that even though the property and grounds people have been reacting to issues that may present themselves, there's not a formal guideline and program to inspect the walls on a regular basis and see problems before they develop. We have had some problems develop, significant problems that people just didn't recognize or didn't recognize the potential impact. The biggest problem are the large trees or other greenery that's planted, excuse me, at or near the top of the retaining walls. Some of those were, I think, left by Pulte, installed by Pulte. A number of them, as I understand, were planted by residents, owners, after the fact, after they moved in. That is something you shouldn't do. And they don't present a problem unless they don't present a significant problem unless something makes them fall, like an ice storm, for example. Long term, they can degrade the reinforcing mesh that's behind the walls, which we don't see, but it's there and it helps hold the wall in place. It's my opinion and common sense, in my opinion, that the maintenance of the walls or any corrective action that needs to be done is just like the rest of our infrastructure. It shouldn't be left to any individual homeowner or even the homeowners on an individual street for a number of reasons. They don't have the expertise, and if they did go and engage someone to look after their wall, they're not going to be under the same quality of program necessarily that the neighbor down the street is. So we need to get them all under a overall established inspection and maintenance program. That's the long-term goal of the committee that I'm on, is to develop the guidelines for the inspections and the criteria, and engage a soils engineer or some other qualified expert to come and inspect the walls on a regular basis, not every year necessarily, maybe 2 or even every 3 years, and just they're trained to recognize potential problems as they develop, and then tell us what they are, and then we can take or the board can take corrective action. But right now, though, we do have some significant issues that need to be addressed sooner than later. As I mentioned, the main one is the big trees, and the other one is drainage issues that were either left here from the original construction or have developed over time with, for example, homeowners rerouting the downspouts from their home and directing it towards the walls. The most, I guess, dangerous thing to retaining walls is what's called hydrostatic pressure, and that's water building up behind the walls. That it's not an official terminology, but that's a wall killer. Mm-hmm. If there are drainage systems behind the walls, but if they get overwhelmed and the water builds up in the soil behind the walls, that will, in fairly short order, kill a wall. We don't have any that I know of that have a significant problem now, but we have a number of walls that have been identified where the drainage has been rerouted or maybe wasn't routed correctly in the beginning, mm-hmm. that need to be addressed. And those things need to be done by the community and not put on the shoulders of any individual homeowner.
So with that said, the trees have been a major source of contention throughout this subdivision for other reasons as well. If the majority vote yes, is it my understanding that the HOA board would remove these trees on their dime? If the vote turns out no, then the homeowner would be responsible for removing that tree.
The first part of that question is easy and short, and that's yes.
Okay.
Money actually has been allocated over the long term and is part of the reserve, as I understand it.
Right.
A significant amount of money to address these issues. If the vote turns out no, then that becomes very complicated because it imposes a potential significant cost on homeowners that either have on their property, but more generally that share a wall, because there's only a few walls that are I don't know the right word, only on one piece of property, on one piece of private property. Most of the walls are shared by adjacent homeowners and or by homeowners and the HOA. But the question is not really, the question is not necessarily what happens if there's a failure or a major problem. I mean, that's a big problem, but my understanding is that if the vote's no, then because we know there's a problem, the HOA is still obligated to do something about it. And the way the CCRs are written now, it's my understanding that the HOA would be put in the position of having to impose on individual homeowners sharing the cost
Right.
of taking down these trees and resolving some of the other issues. And, again, in my mind, that's not fair because the individual homeowners either didn't plant the trees or, if they did, probably planted them out of ignorance that they were doing something that was potentially a significant problem. And, this puts the responsibility under the HOA where it should have been from the beginning.
Right. So it'd be a split cost is what we're saying down the road, which would still cost the homeowner.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's a no vote,
right,
it would
if
be
it's
split.
A no vote, correct.
If it's a yes vote, then it would be as it should be. That
Right.
and there's money, again, as I mentioned, there's money allocated for the program.
Right. There is a reserve for this particular problem.
Right.
Another concern I've heard is that people don't trust the board will not go up on the dues specifically for this, or we would have another assessment for this. My response was, and maybe you can add to this, is that everybody on the board lives in the Deaton Creek, all right? They are residents of Deaton Creek. They pay the same dues. They follow the same rules. They want the same outcome for the value of their home, okay? And they're not paid. Okay, what else can we tell people to try to and convince them that this will, I'm not saying HOA dues won't go up because we go up every year, a certain percentage, but the money that goes into these HOA dues specifically will not be going toward this particular issue. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, I mean, no more than anything else. There is my clear understanding, and that there is no anticipation of any special assessment
Right.
whatsoever with regard to the retaining walls. The money to cover what is anticipated and based on what we know now for the near-term issues to be addressed, the ones we already know about, and to establish and carry out the long-term inspection and maintenance program is covered by money that's already allocated in the budget, both near-term and long-term.
Right.
There is no, notwithstanding I mean, you can't never say never, but there is no anticipation.
The likelihood is very
the
slim.
likelihood is very small, and it would be the result of an unforeseen, totally unforeseen, significant issue that might cause an assessment, and that would years down the road. I mean, we just don't anticipate that.
Right. I have another friend who says they don't want HOA taking over their wall. My response to her was, okay, if they don't take over the wall and there is a problem with your wall and you don't fix it, then litigation comes into the picture, and that's going to cost HOA and you, which when it hits the HOA litigation, therefore the price comes back on the community. Am I correct in saying that?
That's true. And actually I can't remember the exact number. I think it's less than 10. That there's only, I think, 8 or 10 walls that are actually, anybody can say that's my wall, because that's the number of walls that are actually on an individual private property. And all of the other walls are already shared with the homeowner and the HOA.
Right.
in some form or fashion. So to say that I don't want the HOA taking over my wall is a false argument. And also, if you're making that argument, then you're saying, well, I'm the one that wants to be sued if something goes wrong. I don't want the HOA looking after me and maintaining and correcting any problems so that none of us get sued. I'm taking that risk on myself. So that's in my mind, a false argument.
Yeah, very dangerous. Okay, I'm trying to think, any other questions that you've come up with being in the community that you've heard that we should answer here today?
I probably have some, but I can't.
I mean, those are the main ones I heard,
Yeah.
And people spreading misinformation coming from what neighbors are telling them who didn't go to these meetings.
Yeah, I think
I'm
the
having
main
to correct some of this information.
I think the main misinformation that I've heard is the concern of an assessment, special assessment, which is not on the table. That's the only real misinformed understanding, I guess you'd call it, that I've heard. There are some people, as you alluded to, that are concerned about what the HOA may or may not do about their trees or their wall or whatever, but that's going to happen anyway. Because I think maybe one thing that hasn't been highlighted enough, and that a lot of people haven't even thought about, but you mentioned, is the liability issue. Because the board, quote, has been made aware of these issues, the potential for liability, they have a responsibility to react to it as best they can. Now, right now, the CCRs limit what the HOA can do to some degree, but and it becomes more, if they had to react to a significant issue under the current CCRs, it is quite likely, as you alluded to become a litigious issue. But that's the main comments I've heard.
So
I know a lot of the technical things that really don't have to do with the
So let me just
CCR.
sum up some of what we've been talking about in this particular issue. A vote yes would be changing the CCRs
Right.
in that the HOA would be responsible for procuring these retaining walls in the right manner, right?
Correct. Well, yeah, the CCRs, as written, as proposed, the change would take the overall responsibility of the inspection and maintenance and protection of the retaining walls and effectively make them like the rest of the infrastructure and put them under the umbrella of the HOA. And that is the way most people do it. Everybody else that I've been made aware of. And this is not just people telling me this. This is actually a knowledgeable attorney that deals in this telling me this, that every other similar community in the state that they are aware of, their CCRs are the way they, quote, should be. And ours is, if not totally unique, almost unique in that, Pulte left us another rotten Easter egg. And it needs to be put, common sense is important to me. That's the way it should be. And it needs to be done the way it should be done. And that basically it'll put everything under the HOA, and it will not generate any foreseeable additional direct cost. No special assessment it would not affect, really wouldn't affect the increase in dues. That's just, the increases in dues are basically inflation.
Right.
And
That's what I
you know,
told you.
that's, you know.
Anything else you want to add about the walls before we go into
Not right
that's
now.
the
I
first
can't
vote.
think of it.
Okay, the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
vote
that's-
is
yeah.
simply pertaining to
Right.
the walls,
Yeah.
which we hope we've answered the questions that have been floating around here.
Well, I think there have been, well, there was I think it was called a community leaders meeting, and then there was a general information meeting.
Right.
Was it last week? I think I was
It
there.
was during yes.
I
it
was there.
Yes,
But, and then there was
last- and
another
there's
one.
Another one coming up.
There's
Friday.
another one coming up Friday the 7th, and you know, people are welcome. In fact, encouraged to come to those and ask questions. You know, and if there are any things they're not clear about.
I've suggested that as well. And also, while we're bringing that up, the voting was a question that was brought to my attention, and I tried to explain that we have an outside company who's running
Yeah.
the voting system.
Right.
Because if we do it, we're shut down the entire time, and clubs and activities cannot get any
Right.
memos out, any direction during the voting time. We're starting it August 15th.
Right. Yeah.
And we're hoping to end it by September 28th.
Or sooner.
However, if we don't get 763 homes to vote, we're going to leave.
Positive.
Yeah, I mean,
Positive,
and yes, and for the yes vote, we're going to leave it open
Yeah.
for a little bit longer for those that are on vacation.
Right.
And also, I had to bring to somebody's attention, only the homeowner can vote. If you're
Right.
renting, you cannot vote. It's the homeowner
Right.
that makes that vote. So I said to this one lady, you have the number of the man that owns your home. Why don't you give him a call and
Yeah,
express to him how you feel?
Right,
Because she
yeah.
was a yes vote, and your reasons, and make sure that your owner.
Well, of course, the
Votes.
owner shouldn't have to have his tenant, which is
Well, the
that's a good
owners aren't
suggestion.
going to
But
come to
yeah,
these
but they
meetings.
are the ones that have the investment in the
Right.
property, and you know, and protecting the property value is
The
a
number
fairly
one.
significant issue under all of this. And you know, if I was an absentee owner, I would vote for it because I want to protect my investment.
Right. That's what I told her.
Yeah.
And also on the voting issue, I explained to them that Jennifer can get in there to see who voted.
Yeah.
She
whether or
cannot
not you vote. Right.
see how you voted.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason we're looking at if you voted is
Right.
because if you did not vote,
Yeah.
we would like to approach you
Right.
to remind you to vote.
Right. Yeah.
Not to tell you how, but to vote.
Yeah.
So we get the numbers in. Hopefully it's a yes vote, but you know, we can't make people do that. So that's the only, people are so afraid that their vote, it was not a private vote.
Well,
you
it's
know?
absolutely a secret ballot,
Right.
based on the way it's been explained to me. There's an outside company monitoring the thing. They are the only ones that could tell who voted out, and this is not like our political elections where if 30% of the people only turn out, then you know. The winner is who gets the majority of that
Right.
30%. This has to be 66.6%, I think it is, or whatever it is, of the
67%, yeah.
of the total number of available voters. So if we've got 1,100 available votes, we've got to have to pass. We've got to have 700 and some odd
63 votes. I think.
63
63
yes
homes.
votes.
Right.
And you know, if you judge by our political elections, we wouldn't even have that many people vote. So we've got to push people to vote.
Right.
And I know it's been done, not since I've been here, but I know that it's been done in other elections and some of the ones that were specific to Longleaf. I know I was told about one of those where they literally, to get enough people to vote to make it a valid vote, they literally went and knocked on doors and to get enough people to vote. And that, you know,
If committee
Throw
heads
eggs
are
at your
listening
door.
to this podcast,
yeah,
I highly suggest you just send out an email through your committees, because we
Yeah.
have 96 different clubs here.
yeah.
And most of the people are at
Well,
least in
that's-
one of them.
Yeah,
The day of the voting to remind them to
Yeah.
vote. And I'm going to do that like twice a week, you know, until the end of September, to remind people to vote. And again, ask questions to the board, you know, to, if you're still unsure. Okay. All right. The other thing, Joe, that I want to talk about today is the increase in our initiation fees. All right. Now, the initiation fees are normally paid by the buyer,
exactly. Yeah.
and the average initiation fees in this area are anywhere from $1,300 to $3,200, and we're only charging $900 and change. So we're way under. And what these initiation fees do for our community is help build up the HOA reserve fund.
Yeah.
Okay, not to be put toward this project, but
No,
for
it
other
has
things in this community that
Nothing
need
to do
fixing.
with it.
You know, and something's breaking every day. What people don't understand, I don't know if you've heard the same thing, is that, well, I'm going to have to pay that when I sell the house. No, you're not. The buyer pays it. Well, I didn't pay that when I moved in.
Yes, they
Yes,
did.
you did. You just didn't realize with the 500 pages of papers you were signing that you paid an initiation fee, which was much smaller than what we're asking now. So what we're asking now is that they're going to pay 6 months worth of HOA fees up front when somebody
As the
buys
initiation
as
fee.
the
Right,
initiation
yeah,
fee
right.
when they buy the house. And remember, this community is 20 years old.
Yeah.
Things have definitely aged out, and we need that income to help repair those so we don't go up a lot on our HOA fees ourselves. This is a big plus for our community, and we get in line with all the other communities around us. And again, I'm reiterating this, the seller does not pay this fee. The buyer pays the fee. And Shelley Bloom, who, you know, sells many homes in here, she tells all her clients the same thing, that
Yep.
you did pay it when you bought this house, but
Well,
now
if
you don't have to
I
pay
would
it.
suggest if they have a question that they paid it, if they can find it, go back and look at their closing statement.
Right.
Because one of the lines on their closing statement is going to be the
Right.
HOA initiation fee.
And remember, these are two separate votes.
Oh, yeah.
When,
I mean,
when we pick up this link to vote, it's two separate votes, one for the wall and one for the initiation fee,
and one has absolutely nothing to
to do with the
other.
other.
It's efficient to have both of these voted on at the same time.
Right.
One not having to do anything,
Correct.
absolutely nothing to do with
And
the
again,
other.
we're hoping you vote yes for both.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, ask questions. Come to the meeting next
Yeah.
Friday and ask the board if you have a question.
And also, there is the meeting Friday, and there was a fairly good turnout at the last one. I hope there's a good one this one too. But also, I think Harvey mentioned, Harvey, he's the
Berlin.
chairman of our committee, that if, or maybe Beth, I forgot who mentioned it, that if there's interest shown, we can have another one. I mean, if there's a number of people who say, well, I really still don't understand, I'm not clear about this and that, we can schedule another one of these information meetings. I mean, I wouldn't, the board would.
Right.
But, that's the board and the board members and the other committee members, and I've been there representing the CIC board, committee. I mean, more willing and able to show up and answer questions again. So
Right. Now, one more question. You've identified, the committee or the HOA has identified all the problems with the walls at this time. So you are aware of what needs to be done.
well, we're aware of significant problems, and actually we're in the process of identifying and hiring a I guess consultant, expert, whatever, probably a soils engineer, geologist, that would not a geologist, but a soils engineer, to maybe do a little more in-depth inspection, and pick specific walls and have them do some specific inspection and test to either to help us better understand what really is going on behind some of these walls, to make sure there's not a significant issue that we haven't identified, and to confirm some educated guesses that have had to been made, because there's not any as-built drawings, what we call as-builts. When you finish a project, you have the final drawings that are supposed to show how it was built, and they were apparently never turned over to the HOA. The Pulte either didn't keep them or didn't give them to the HOA, but they were never provided. That's supposed to be common practice and contractual practice in my experience. And also the county apparently has, quote, lost their record drawings or the permit drawings. So we don't have any actual drawings that show the actual design of any of these walls. Both the Davis Engineering and some other people we've engaged, and some people like myself who have some real knowledge or practical knowledge, have looked at them and made evaluations about certain things that we're fairly confident about. But there are some things that we think need to be better analyzed, if you will. Mm-hmm. And we're in the process of doing that now. And that's
again, no cost to the homeowners. This
no,
is already...
absolutely no. This is part of our. This is part
Reserve
of the committee's responsibility, which whatever costs we incur is already covered by the
reserve
budgeted money in the reserve fund. And they incurred some cost last year having Davis do that report. We're going to incur some more cost over the next few weeks of engaging this consultant, if you will, and also to have Davis do a what's called an as-built survey of all the walls, so we know exactly where the walls are with regard to property lines, and exactly how long the walls are and how high they are.
Okay.
Among other things, that will be necessary in not just in the short term, but ongoing in the long term. So we're going to do it all at once now, and not do it piecemeal. And we've also have talked to and are in the process of talking to some other consultants, if you will, wall contractors and engineers who are knowledgeable about the walls. So we get, by the time this passes, or at least shortly thereafter, we'll have a very full understanding of the situation of the walls as they are and what really needs to be done in the short term. And then, as I mentioned, we're also developing the long-term inspection and maintenance program, and so that we can have that in place, and also develop reference material, if you will, to give to the ARC and the property and grounds, so that when owners want to build or do something on their property, if they're at or near a retaining wall, there will be established guidelines of what may or may not be an issue, and best practices is how to address those, and some things that just won't be allowed, and or if they will be allowed, guidelines as to how to have them done, quote, properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when we moved my mother-in-law in 2013, she has a retaining wall back there. When we had them come out, property and grounds, they told us then, no trees within 4 feet.
Yeah.
So they had some of this in their mind already, as we asked permission to put, and they gave us what we could put back
Right.
there for her.
Well, see, that's the kind of thing that should have been formally established from the beginning.
Okay.
Now, apparently Property and Grounds, whoever was on it at that time,
New.
was knowledgeable and was doing their job. But the first thing is that I guess you all ask.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, well, the problem is some people have done things without asking. And that presents issues.
Right. And my husband had some knowledge of this stuff
Yeah,
anyway, so he said, "Nah, we got to find out what we can put here
Yeah,
before we
exactly.
put anything in." Well, Joe, I can't thank you enough. You're very knowledgeable. And again,
Well,
to those who are watching this, ask questions. Go
Yep.
to meetings. If you are really unsure, I had one friend of mine say, "I'm still on the fence." Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let me hear your concerns. Let me try to answer your questions. And if I can't answer them, I will find the answer for you or direct you to the person who can go into depth more about this.
Yeah,
But and the on the fence thing has to do with money.
Yeah.
It's what it's all about. It's about the money and the fear of HOA and assessments coming up. And we live in HOA. We're going to have dues. We don't live in Florida where their assessments are 100,000 plus a year. So I feel very grateful for the 35 I've paid for the past 2 years a month. But I want to thank you for
Right.
your knowledge and your input and your dedication to this committee so that we do have a safe and valuable neighborhood to live in.
Well, people can send questions now, not to the committee. The proper hierarchy or chain of command is if you have questions, send them to the board. And then the board, if they're technical questions, excuse me, they will send them to us. And we will address them. But the policy questions and the cost questions, I have nothing to do with that. That's
Right.
over my pay grade. But the technical questions between the members of the board, we have several people who have, a good bit of knowledge about
And I have had
construction.
this put forward to me that they have put out questions to the board and it's been 4 or 5 days and they haven't heard back yet. My response was, do you know how many questions are getting at this point in time?
Yeah.
And there's maybe 5 people that can answer these questions.
Yeah.
And I said, give it time.
Yeah.
You're not voting until August 15th. I
Right.
promise you they'll get back to you. And putting in dual forms is not going to make it go any faster. But that's why we have
Yeah.
liaisons like myself and you
Yeah.
talking to people as well too. Hopefully we've answered most or all of your questions you have concerning this vote, but let me give you the email address to the board directly if you want questions answered that we did not answer. The address is bod@clubdeaton.net. Again, they will get that email directly and get back to you with your answers as well. Have a great day. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.